Hello and welcome back to another episode of Everybody Hates Your Brand, the podcast for all things marketing. And it's been a while since the last podcast, so apologies for that. But this one is pretty entertaining. We have our first returning guest of the show. Mark Razzell was our first ever guest in episode 11 back in October 2020, when he was Director of Data and CRM at With Collective in Sydney, Australia. And we've got him back because he's just launched a new venture called Critical Truth, which is designed to shine the harsh light of the scientific method on the world of advertising and marketing agencies. So please settle in and enjoy the next 30 minutes or so with Mark and I. So, as I said in the intro to this podcast, we have our first returning guest in Mark Razzell, an honour. Welcome back to the podcast, Mark.
Thank you very much, mate. How are you?
Not doing too bad, thank you. It's been a long time since you were on the podcast. And so, whilst I'm sure every listener has listened to that podcast, why wouldn't they? And for those of you who are interested, it was episode 11, October 2020. Look it up. A lot has changed in your life since then. So, do you want to give us just a little bit of a background for all those people who have not listened to that podcast, into yourself and your background? And also, I guess, a little bit into what's happening with an exciting new venture that you have going.
Yeah, sure. So I was just trying to remember what we talked about all those years ago, and what shit did I say? Like, how much trouble can I get in by thinking about
It was
that?
all about experimentation and fallacies when using data and all that kind of fun stuff that you love to get
so
on your
I built a business
hobby
around
horse
that.
about.
Hey, I built a
Yeah.
business around that.
Yeah.
It's good to see I stayed true to my bullshit.
Yes. Yeah.
I've started a business. Hurrah!
Congratulations.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah, very exciting and also terrifying in equal measures, and it alternates pretty much every 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Called Critical Truth, and I don't want to talk about the name too much because I'm pretty sure the perspective and why will come to fruition or be explained as we go through. But ultimately, my background is in my educational background and post-academia background is in ethology and evolutionary biology. So I have a pretty strong background in the social science, particularly the quantitative side of things. When I got sucked up into the commercial world, I worked in planning and strategy, but I also have a data science skill set by virtue of my education. So that blended skill set over the years, I've kind of been refining and exploring how to make it work in a commercial endeavor and useful to clients and helping achieve their objectives, etc. And it just felt like the right time to give it a nudge. I mean, Lord knows if it'll work. Who knows?
What I found really interesting was that, like, you've worked for some big agencies and we should say at this point that Mark currently resides in Melbourne, Australia, and has worked for some big agencies like With Collective and Clemenger and a bunch of other ones. Is that it feels like Critical Truth is almost a reaction to things that you've seen in advertising and marketing. And full disclosure, Mark and I worked together for a couple of years. Some things that you see in agencies that maybe you think lead to sort of suboptimal work, suboptimal output, suboptimal strategies. It's really hard to say suboptimal, and a lot of times it starts to sound weird in your head, just for the record. And I think I'd love to go through some of those things, because if you were going to, what's the elevator pitch for Critical Truth? Like, what's the one-liner for what Critical Truth is, I suppose? Is it an insight agency? Is it... How would you describe it?
Oh yeah, no, I'm glad you said that, because when you ask me if you ask me to describe it like ethereally or whatever, I'm like, oh shit, I haven't actually done that yet. Because I'm very matter of fact and pragmatic, right? So I'm just like, we are a research, analytics, and strategy agency. Like, we're consultancy. We're sorry, not agency, consultancy, research, analytics, and strategy, and we operate up funnel in marketing strategies. So orientation. So we basically just geared our products and services towards the sort of first steps that Ritson maps out in his map. And I'm like, well, everybody's doing his mini MBA, so
it does seem to be the case.
Should be pretty salient. So we do orientation, research, business intelligence, segmentation, BI, and then positioning.
Gotcha.
Our orientation is not to blow my own trumpet, although I will if you ask nicely. It's I think we're better than probably 99% of what's out there. The research component is an evolution of what exists. The pitch on research is, whereas market research agencies will have 5 people working on something, we'll have 2 max.
Yeah.
The BI segmentation and targeting is my bit of bread and butter. Like, it's always
Yep.
weirded me out. Like, I can work with any and all data if its root cause is ones and zeros, and I demand the same of our guys. Then you should be able to work with it. So you should be able to switch from survey data, text data, and NLP into working with commercial data and first
Hmm.
party. And
Yep.
then the positioning is just tying everything up in a bow, just like, here is an action plan to
Hmm.
deliver through your organization to grow your business.
Gotcha. And I think what the reason we got you on here is not to shill your business, but you can happily do that. But
I'm
because I
done with
think
that now, man. I'm ready
no,
to
no,
shoot
no.
the shit. And
The reason I'm saying that is because I think because I said before, it's a reaction to stuff that I know, having worked
yeah,
with you, has driven you bonkers
don't
over
be
your
talking about,
career
mate.
in from
I'm a
agencies.
picture of calm. I'm
Yes,
zen.
yeah. I think the word "barely suppressed rage" is a good phrase. I know it's different now you're a dad, but the point is, some of those things that you pick out, I think, are really interesting to unpick and talk about. Um, and one of the ones I know comes up a lot is the kind of concept of trying to prove yourself right. Agencies like to come up with nice little plausible, plausible's better than true in lots of cases in terms of selling something in. They come up with a nice plausible story and they want something scientific, he says in inverted commas, to back that up. And you, on your website, you say that too many agencies from an insight perspective start finding proof to support that narrative. Can you explain for the people in the back why that's bad and what, from your perspective, is the correct way to start to do that, understand your audience essentially?
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, so I'd say, like, by my estimates, over like a decade in agencies. Look, agencies is where is where my understanding is, but it's not unique to agencies. It's marketers in general. I'd say about 80% of the time, being the data guy, they come to me and be like, "Can you help us prove X, Y, or Z?"
Mm-hmm.
And my response was always, "I can prove whatever you like, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's true." You and I used to use that Ronald Coates quote, who's like the grandfather of statistics, which was,
Mm.
"You can torture the data. If you torture the data long enough, it will confess to anything."
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it always drove me nuts that, like, you are seeking proof for something because it doesn't necessarily mean it's true. Like, a phrase that I've started using is, "Truth needs proof, but proof doesn't need truth." Okay.
Uh-huh.
And, like, philosophically, that's obviously, like, we can get into the weeds, but I'm keeping both my feet grounded here. Like,
Yeah.
it's fundamental. And I can convince you that something is a good idea with proof, but if it isn't
Mhm.
true, it's not going to deliver results.
Mhm.
And something that I've witnessed over the last 10 years, and, I'm not unique in this by any fucking stretch, is the sort of diminished respect that marketing receives within organizations. We've seen the tenure of CMOs decline.
Absolutely.
Their sort of the respect that they have internally has been declining, and I actually pin a lot of that on this sort of proof seeking behavior,
Right.
because they're, not just CMOs, but like everyone within marketing. They're like, "I've got to prove myself right, so I'm going to go in and I'm going to act like a lawyer and I'm going to make my argument incredibly strongly and well, and then I'll have no choice but to do what I want to do."
Mhm.
And ultimately, if you do a really good job in that and you prove your case and everybody goes, "Okay, let's go and do with what this person wants to do,"
Mhm.
but it doesn't deliver results because it's not based on truth. It's the boy who cried wolf, right? There's
Yeah.
only so many times that you can get away with that. And over time, you just have diminished respect,
Mhm.
and lack of trust, and subsequently, the obsession at the moment with marketing being a part of growth plans. If you want to be taken seriously as a part of growth plans, then you need to focus on pragmatism and the truth, and
Mhm.
not try and shoulder your way into conversations to have everybody bow down to your sources of truth. I call it like the lawyer mindset versus the science mindset. Like, a
Yeah.
lawyer goes, like, quite rightly, that's their profession. I'm not having a
Mm.
crack at lawyers, but it's,
Yeah.
lawyers go because there's 2 of them, and one of them is trying to prove one case, and the other one
Yeah.
is trying to prove one case, and that makes complete sense in the subjective world of human behavior, etc. But, like, in the context of science, like, that's not like, it's obviously not a perfect system, but you go in with a question. Okay. And
Mhm.
this is something So just coming to your point around like,
Mm.
what's the better way to start is, I used to say, and I drilled this in to as many people as I could. I was like, do not come to me with a point of view or like asking me to prove you something. I
Mm.
mean, you can, but you're going to get you're going to get my spiel, and you're going to hate it,
Yeah.
and I'm going to hate it, and no one wants that. Come to me with a question, a genuine question. Like come to me at the point that your curiosity is piqued, and
Hmm.
then I will help you explore that, get you to the truth, give you the evidence, and then you can expand on that to play
Yeah.
with. Um, and even that's kind of funny. Like there was a question that I use this example all the time. Like one of my colleagues who I work with, who I love dearly, came to me and said, like, that they understood that I want a question. They come to me and they'd be like, so my question to you is, how has our relationship with health changed since COVID? I was like, oh, bless you, mate. Like, I
Hmm.
appreciate you for trying, but even within that question, there is an assumption that our relationship with
Has
health
changed.
has indeed changed.
Mm.
Like, we actually need to go to the root. The first question is, has our relationship with health changed? So, as an example, fundamentally, my answer to that question is no, it hasn't really. We've kind of reverted back to the mean, which is
Hmm.
expected. But if we would have based if we would have assumed that it's true, we would have said that our health has changed, and I would have gone digging around trying to find all the ways that it would have worked. We would have built a big campaign, a massive strategy, and everything that was based on a fundamental falsehood, and
Yeah.
subsequently would not have delivered any results. So yeah, I think that's in my experience, like departments outside of marketing
Hmm.
respond much better to your attempts to try and get to the truth
Hmm.
and deliver what evidence you have, even if it's imperfect, than they do with a
Hmm.
bunch of slides that provide
Yeah.
statistics that prove you right very conveniently.
Cool. Well, thank you for that. I think the other things you talked about, especially in your intro, was about research and the limitations of, I guess, as you were describing, of traditional quote unquote market research. What are the kind of root causes of the issues that you have with traditional quote unquote market research?
The main thing that upsets me is people will
Yeah.
tell you what they think you want to hear. Subsequently, you get like an inaccurate view of the world. And
Do you think that applies to both qualitative things like focus groups and quant, or do
yeah,
you have different
probably.
issues with both?
Yeah, I have different issues with both. Like, personally, I don't really bother with
Mm.
qual at all,
Oh, all the
because
Riptonites will
then,
be yelling at you.
yeah, well, good luck to them. Like, because the reason why I don't bother with qual is because my orientation methods, I believe, are better than qual. I don't
Right,
need to
yeah.
do qual.
Hmm.
I don't need to do it. But I understand why qual has existed historically. But the reality is that in a survey, one person is going to be lying and
Hmm.
telling you what they think you want to hear and introducing their bias. But in qual, that's happening two ways.
Hmm.
Like you are questioning and you are influencing the responder, and you're both kind of feeding what off each other. Not only that, but the people observing. I've been in qual groups before where I've witnessed people come out with entirely different takes and conveniently their takes just happen to align with what their preconceived suppositions were going into
Yeah.
it. I'm not here to shit all over qual, and also I'm
Mm.
not a qual guy, and if people want to do it, I'm definitely
Mm.
not against it, just to be
Yeah.
absolutely clear. But in the quantitative world, which is where I live, like
Hmm.
I'm not against the fundamental tools, but it's the mindset that's deployed.
Okay.
I mentioned orientation. Surveys are not orientation. I wouldn't even say that qual is orientation, and nor should they be.
Hmm.
Because if you ask people what they think, they're going to tell you what they think you want to hear. Tell you what they can tell you what they think you want to
Mm.
hear, and you're going to end up with a very inaccurate view of the world. And the outcome of treating surveys like orientation is like a
Mm.
monstrous survey. It takes ages to deliver. It's super convoluted. It's not geared towards any particular commercial imperative. You end up with a 150-page slide deck that breaks the survey down in like a multitude of nuanced ways. It is like,
Hmm.
well, we thought this was interesting because of X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
It's not. And realistically, my it's not so much that I have an issue with the methods, because we're somewhat limited within the research world. It's my issue is in the traditional types of agencies, to be perfectly honest.
Hmm.
Um, I think they do a bit of a bad job with the methods because they quite often lack the skill. Like I know a lot of agencies that still have advanced methods departments. And I'm like, well, the existence of an advanced methods department or person suggests that there are like a lacking in skill
Mm.
abundance of people. And I don't think that's good enough. Like there are plenty of people out there who are statistically trained enough to do a good job there. And fundamentally, it goes back to a bit of a science mindset for
Mm-hmm.
me. Like you, at the point that you want to engage with primary research, you should be thinking experimentationally, not question. Like
Mm-hmm.
the old quote, which I know is misattributed and probably not true, but though if I had have asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster
Yeah.
horses. Henry Ford.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I have obviously I have issues with that for various reasons because it's probably not even fucking true. But the foundation of that is right. Like you shouldn't be treating your primary research like what would you like to see from this category
Yeah.
or what would you like to see? It's nonsense. You need to go in with an experimentation mindset rather than pretending you know nothing when you're paying a huge amount of money to talk to these people.
So expand on what you mean by experimentation mindset.
Yeah, it's don't ask consumers questions because they'll lie. You need to manipulate the truth out of them, right? That's the reality. I basically, if you're doing a survey, you're doing a survey, and you're going to want to deliver what you perceive as a respondent to be quality results, i.e.,
Mhm.
saying all these brands are amazing and I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
Like
Or sustainability is
the
important to me.
fucking oath, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Like, are you willing to pay more for clothing
Oh,
that is
don't.
sustainably sourced? Yes, I am. And then Sheen comes on to scene and absolutely skyrockets. Oh my god, it drives me nuts. Millennials will pay more for experiences. Fucking
Mm-hmm.
no, they won't. No, they don't want them more. It just
No more than
exactly. Like
anybody
there
else.
is
Anyway.
exactly. There is no limit to the. But I get it. They produce nice sound bites that get
Mm-hmm.
PR, so I understand.
Yeah.
But fundamentally, it's yeah, you've got to manipulate the truth out of them, and at its most minute like case of this, it's don't let the consumer know which brand you are representing until right at the end of the survey. Okay, even when you're asking questions, don't let them know what brand they're
Mm-hmm.
responding to. If you're doing category research, I know that sounds like a very simple thing, but I cannot tell you how many reviews of surveys I've done where I've had to step in and say, whoa, 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 whoa. They can't know who they're answering questions for because then they're going to manipulate
Mm-hmm.
all their subsequent answers. Um, Even just things like your split sampling, like just adopting some of the learnings and understanding that we have from double blind experimentation.
Mm-hmm.
You know, of course, it's never going to be absolutely perfect because it's not a perfect environment. It's not a perfect
Mm.
clinical setting. It's still a survey, but at the very least, you can make efforts to try and manipulate the truth out of people. It comes back to you're not trying to prove something. Your objective is not necessarily to get a very specific percentage out of something. You
Mm-hmm.
are testing your hypotheses because you've done your job in orientation.
Mm-hmm.
So subsequently, your objective is really to try and prove yourself wrong because that's
Yeah.
the foundation of the scientific method.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm being a bit wishy-washy here because it's very difficult to point to like specific examples, but like
Mm-hmm.
split sample testing, like if you know everybody's going to try and tell you what they think you want to hear, so you need to put them on separate paths, show them separate propositions, push them down different strategic routes that you're trying to test, and then
Mm-hmm.
measure efficacy accordingly.
Yeah.
All that jazz. Again, it's a mindset and a skill set thing.
It's not so much your quote unquote anti-survey. It's the application and the way in
Correct.
which those tools are delivered.
Yeah,
So the
yeah.
tools aren't wrong. It's just that the tools are used incorrectly sometimes.
Same with qual. The same with
Mm-hmm.
qual because I. I'm going to mention these guys this probably later as well, but like because I talk about it all the time. But the Sainsbury's try something new today.
Mm-hmm.
In the case study, they talk about the sleep. Everybody was sleep shopping, and to
Right.
test this, they put a guy in a gorilla suit. I mean, it was probably only for the IPA effectiveness video. They
Probably.
probably
Yeah.
didn't do, but still, I was like, that is a qualitative experiment. And that
Mm-hmm.
is what we should be aiming for, not getting a
Yeah.
bunch of people in a room to sit down and ask for their opinions and perspectives,
Uh-huh.
because what's the point?
Yeah. Well, they get yeah. Yeah, yeah. Fair point.
You're going
Fair
to
point.
selectively choose their opinions and perspectives. They're going to selectively give their opinions and perspectives, and everybody's going to come out of that room hearing what they wanted to hear and saying what
Yeah.
they think you wanted to say.
Yeah, the truth is in the eye of the beholder. So one of the things you talk about on your website, which I have spent some time going through for this interview, is the concept of category. You wrote category dictates behavior, not consumers. Discuss. Expand. What do you mean by that?
Oh, hot seat, hot seat. Yeah, so look, it's a fairly rudimentary nod to like marketing theory from like Byron Sharp, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that people's buying is shaped by category dynamics
Yeah.
fundamentally. Like which brand has the best salience or mental availability? Where is your position on the shelf? That fundamentally dictates your physical availability, etc.,
Yeah.
etc. It's look, behavior doesn't exist or change without some sort of stimuli first and
Mm-hmm.
foremost, and that stimuli comes from marketers most of the time. You know, like my dog doesn't do anything unless I ask her or give her something for it, or like, you know, make a concerted effort to change a behavior. So again, like the try something new today from Sainsbury's. That's for me. Every time I think about that, I think about new ways that campaign I believe impacted the world. You know,
Right.
because I mean, Jamie Oliver, try something new today, and that was at the absolute beginning of the proliferate. Like before that, I don't know if you remember. Before that, I ate the same grey slop every day. Um,
I'm saying nothing. My mum's cooking is delightful.
well, God love you, mum, but
Yeah, bless her.
it
But
ain't.
yeah, I
It
know what you
ain't.
mean. I do think it was I think it was a very salient campaign. And the thing was, I think one of the things that Byron Sharp talks a lot about as well is consistency.
Yeah,
They kept at it for a while. And I think that's
yeah,
one
of
of the things
course.
that
Oh yeah, you can't just say one thing one time, drop a pipe
campaign for
bomb,
3 months
yeah,
and
no,
then
no,
yeah, yeah,
you
yeah,
got to
yeah, yeah.
drive that. But ultimately, that category effort is what drives behaviour. We have it
Yeah.
here in Australia, the whole zero alc beer thing as well. Like I used
Oh,
to
okay.
when I worked with beer brands, and they used to say, oh, there's a trend towards zero alcoholic beer. And I'm like, well, but you created that. Like, you did that.
Yeah.
Like you guys invested a significant amount of money consistently to try and get people to buy zero alcohol beer because your margins are great
Yeah.
on it and it's in your best interest. You created that. Let's not pretend like we're just following consumers and like spotting
Yeah.
their random whims. Like we are creating the behavior, the market behavior. Of course we are,
Well, it
and
kind of,
that's
in a
fine.
way, goes back to the point you were talking about. That what if I'd have asked people what they wanted, they would have said a faster
Yeah,
horse.
which is
But
why we
they
spend so much
created a
time on
category.
orientation.
Yeah, but they
Yes,
created a category essentially. You're right. They came
yes,
up with something. Steve Jobs talks about that. You know, it's a
yes,
classic example. Some of the products that he's come up with, the iPad. Like,
yes.
you know,
Yeah,
there were tablets and all that sort of stuff beforehand, but he made that. They made that category basically.
even the
Because
iPhone.
nobody was
Well,
asking for a 10-inch tablet with a, unless you really like Star Trek, maybe.
yeah, but I mean, look,
Um,
even the iPhone, you know, and touchscreen
yeah.
phones. I mean, well, LG Chocolate did it first, right?
Mm,
LG created the first like iPhone
mhm.
type thing, in the same way that the what was it called, the Zen or the Zoom,
Yeah.
the first
Oh,
MP3 player
the
thing,
Zune.
the
Yeah, yeah,
Zune,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
the
The
Zune.
Zune. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Microsoft's
LG and
Zunes. Yeah.
Zune created the first touchscreen phone and the first MP3 player, respectively, but they didn't market it well enough to create the category behavior, whereas Apple
Mm,
did.
absolutely.
Categories and the way that you market the category
Yeah.
dynamics dictate behavior.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's I mean,
Gotcha.
we can talk about it. And that's why I
No.
put so much vested interest in orientation, so
Yeah.
much.
Putting your, putting yourself actually in the, it's a trite phrase, but putting really understanding the customer, and because that's what
Oh,
market orientation is about, right? You are not
correct.
your customer, which I think is
Yeah.
obviously what a lot of people. And I think there's a whole separate conversation about um, diversity in agencies,
Oh my
which
god.
doesn't help the conversation either.
Oh my god.
Just on a slight aside on that, there was obviously John Lewis recently took their business away from Adam and Eve DDB in the UK and gave it to Saatchi and Saatchi's. And one of the things that Saatchi's did was work with an agency called Not the 85%, because it was basically the 85% of the UK population who don't live in London and the southeast, and actually,
Mm.
you know, and you look around
Wait, do you mean
advertising
like
agencies.
actual people? Like
Yeah, but
yeah,
yeah, real people. And to be
disgusting.
honest with you, I get the whole. I was having this conversation yesterday with somebody about agencies and diversity and all that kind of
Oh
stuff.
my
And
god.
I was like, if you're going to do it properly, open a advertising agency in Rochdale.
Fucking oath. Do you know, mate? I obviously, in my role, I've done so much demographic analysis, and the only variable that matters is socioeconomic. And when I look around
Interesting.
advertising agencies, I'm just like, oh my god,
White middle class.
it's middle class folk who are out of touch. And like, fuck, even I'm guilty of it now. Like, I come from a lower middle class background in the UK, and even now I'm like, oh man, I've kind of betrayed my roots. Like, I've got to get back to
Betrayed
basics and
roots.
learn more about the peoples. My peoples.
Peoples. Well, while talking about different groups of people and
Mm,
segmentation, I always find is an interesting conversation because some people put great store in it. I have mixed feelings about its use and when it's applicable and when it's not applicable.
mm.
You talk about it on your website. So, from a segmentation perspective, what are your views on it, and what do you see as sort of flaws that are made either in developing or application of it?
Oh man, I am amazing at segmentation.
I have zero doubt that you think that you are, Mark.
Just for clarification as well, do you want to tell the people what I joined this call, what my nickname I put as well?
I mean, it literally says Monsieur Amazing. So that tells you something about Mr. Razzell.
To be clear, it's a joke from when we used to work together as
That
well.
is.
It's a
That
reference to
is.
yeah.
It's a fair in joke.
I'm actually quite insecure. So segmentation. Look, my biggest bugbear with segmentation is when you get personas masquerading as segments.
Right.
So it's like, these are our segments. We have four, and there's always like between 4 and 6.
Yeah.
Always.
Don't want
And
too
it's like,
many.
this is Janet. She's
Yeah.
43. She really enjoys her downtime and blah blah
Hmm.
blah. And I'm like, how the fuck is this useful to anyone in any actionable context? Like, you give it to anyone except the people who like designed it either directly or peripherally,
Hmm.
and they're just like, what am I supposed to do with this information?
Yeah. Yeah.
It drives me nuts. My perspective on segmentation is that it needs to be actionable through the line,
Hmm.
as in it has to be actionable one to one to
Hmm.
many, and one to all.
Hmm.
One to one is absolutely imperative in the age of market automation. Okay,
Yeah.
because if it isn't useful to a machine right now, then it isn't going to be useful up the funnel.
Hmm.
Okay. And the arbitrary merging, I'll give you an example in a second, but like the arbitrary merging, like, so you mentioned like the too many thing.
Hmm.
I'm like, what do you mean too many? Like, as
Yeah.
soon as you start merging things, like they become less discreet, less
Yeah.
interesting. So I, I'm really into behavioral segmentation. Okay.
Hmm.
So I think you're going to love this, mate. We created behavioral segments based on category interaction.
Right.
So like, what do you buy most of? So like,
Hmm.
you and I will probably be in like the his and home segment,
Hmm.
right? Like, we buy a lot of menswear and we buy a lot of But then the other thing that I wanted to do, I was like, well, I want to use segmentation to improve you in terms of your value as a customer. Okay, so how do I do that? Well, the first thing I need to do is I need to figure out what measure matters most. So
Hmm.
frequency. Okay, frequency. I need to get you, Rob Vose, to visit this store more times in order to extract more value from you. Oh god, that sounds horrible, but yeah, you know what I mean,
I
right?
know what you mean.
So, because the segments are based on category behavior, and you and I both buy the same things. I built a recommendation engine that's very similar to how like Spotify and YouTube work.
Hmm.
Um, it makes recommendations at a category level that should improve your frequency. So, say you and I are in the same category behavior segment, but I visit 3 times and you only visit twice, but otherwise we're
Hmm.
behaviorally similar. We buy the same shit.
Yeah.
And the difference is that I buy jeans. I'm like, I need to
Hmm.
get Rob to buy jeans. Okay.
Yeah.
Now that works at a one-to-one level, but I can
Hmm.
also aggregate that information and I can say, what categories do we need to prioritize in order to improve people's frequency? And I
Hmm.
can say, well, 40% of the time, um, men are being recommended to buy jeans, so we need to get men in here to buy jeans.
Hmm.
Okay. And then you can aggregate it even further and just ignore the segments and say what categories get recommended most to improve people's frequency. And we might
Yeah.
say beauty, it's this, it's that. So it can end up informing commercial decisions.
Yeah. Yeah. And it
That's
can
what I
inform
mean by
store
exactly
experience.
correct.
Are our jeans easily findable?
It can be
Physical
used
availability, all
in
that.
myriad
Size of
ways. This
range.
is
Yeah.
Like, and don't get me wrong, like category interaction isn't always going to be relevant. Like I did something with a motor vehicle company here in Australia recently, where I built a kind of cool segmentation based on why people buy their car using an adaptation of K-mode's clustering
Right.
to say like there are like 13 or 14 main groups of people as to why they buy the car,
Mm-hmm.
and here is what they look like. And then of course you can split it in other ways that are actionable in channels like media. You can be like, if you're targeting this segment, they are most likely to be 45 plus and probably living in
Mm-hmm.
these areas, so it's got to be actionable through the line.
Yeah.
And the only way you do that, really, from my perspective, is to have someone who understands.
Mm-hmm.
Well, here I am pitching my services again. Someone
Yeah.
who understands the
Yeah.
machine learning component
Mm-hmm.
and the commercial component.
Yeah. I think I'm with you in terms of segmentation. From my perspective, the best segmentations are built on behavioral data, as in, so if I think back to my time working at Game, it was built, we had a genre segmentation. So what type of games are you
Same
playing?
thing.
You
Yeah.
know, and okay, well, you bought this type of, and it was especially useful for things like new IP, so new video games
Did you
coming
have a
out.
recommendation engine though?
We didn't get to that bit. This was back just after World War II, so but we did have we were working on that actually, but we did have the idea that, so it's a new IP and it's okay, it's a third person shooter, looks a bit like Gears of War maybe or whatever it is. Okay, well,
Mm.
how can we use this? Okay, well, this type of group of people are into that type of game, that kind of stuff I think is really valuable. The worst bit is when somebody creates an attitudinal segmentation through research, then you think,
Oh
from a
mate.
CRM perspective,
Oh
how
my
the hell am
god.
I supposed to match
How do
that
you
back
use
to the
that?
data
Yeah.
that I've got? Like,
How do you use
it was
that? Yeah,
useless.
it's
The only thing I
completely
can see
useless.
that's useful for is to a degree, if you're, I don't know, maybe your customer set isn't representative of the whole population. Maybe there's types of segments of people out there that you're not representing that you could be going and acquiring or something. But like, I'm with you. I think you build research from the data that you've got first and expand
Yeah.
out from that for
Otherwise,
anything else.
yeah, like attitudinal, like the yeah, because attitudinal. Yeah, I know what you mean. Like
Mm,
fundamentally, if you're trying to identify attitudinal target audiences
mm,
that you're not quite getting, yeah, fine.
yeah,
But that's like that's not creating new segments. That's an
no,
acquisition
yeah,
strategy that you need to
yeah,
do.
you built something
And
for
the other
that.
thing
Yeah,
I've heard is like, well, attitudinal segments are useful for creatives. I'm like, they don't read that shit, man. I promise you.
no, they read the one line prop and a couple of bits from the brief, and that's about it.
Barely fucking read that, mate.
If they, mate, they better do the amount of time I spend writing a
Oh,
anyway.
I'm going to break your heart. So let's move on.
But it's the most important line in the brief, Mark. I've been told this by
Mm,
multiple people.
of course, mate.
Anyway, so I'm conscious of time, so I'm going to jump to it's a couple of questions. One is on AI, which I'm scared to ask you because I feel like it could add
I think you're
15
going to be
minutes
surprised, Mr.
to the
Boast. I think
length
you're going to
of
be
this.
surprised.
Okay,
No,
so I'll
you're all right.
ask it and we'll see what happens. What is your perspective of AI? Because there's different types. Obviously, there's AI in terms of building recommendation engines, and they've been around for a long
Yeah, this
time,
is the thing, man. Like in
versus
the
generative
yeah.
AI, like a ChatGPT or a Bard
So
or
yeah,
or that kind of
I'm
stuff.
guessing. Yeah, you're talking about ChatGPT, like
Yeah, the
like
generative AI stuff.
the GANs and all that
Mm,
jazz and LLMs. Yeah, man. Like I think it's great. Like
mm-hmm,
so, the reality is like I've been working in natural language processing for 5 years,
mm-hmm,
and I love my methods because I'm really good at analyzing text.
mm-hmm.
And when I first got to a point where my analysis is amazing, I was like, I can create new text. This is about 2.5 years ago. I was like,
Mm,
I can create new text. So I built a model to do that. And I was like, wow, this is dog shit. How do I make it better? And I was
yeah,
like, I would need a lot of money and a lot of computers to make this better.
yeah.
And I was like, yep, not doing that. I'm going to make graphs instead. So I'm just thrilled personally to see people kind of achieving the natural ambition that I was gearing towards,
Mm-hmm,
which is just like summarizing huge amounts of text. Like, I love working with massive amounts of data that is incredibly sparse and is dirty as well. And there's
mm-hmm,
nothing that fits that bill more than text and imagery.
mm-hmm.
So like, but do I think it's look, I think it's amazing. I think it's
Yeah.
amazing. I think it threatens current and localized economies, but if we're drinking the capitalist
Mm-hmm.
Kool Aid, like shit will work out in the end, right? So
Well,
I think it's incredible.
one of my favorite quotes from a guy called Mark Kermode, who's a film critic, from their show, Kermode and Mayo show. It'll be all right in the end, and if it's not all right, it's not the end. Now, this
Yeah.
question, I have been waiting to ask you for a long time because I go back to this point about barely concealed rage. So we a few months ago, I came up with the idea of everybody in HR Brand Marketing Room 101, a place where we could send things that we hate. You have the opportunity to throw one thing, or propose, I should say, one thing to put into everybody HR Brand Marketing Room 101.
I just got to say, like, this is, I feel like I'm achieving a lifelong ambition, like a slightly subdued version, because I used to love Paul Merton. Was it Paul Merton?
Yeah,
Room
it was
101?
Paul Merton's
Oh,
show.
he's one of my
Yeah,
favorite comedians of all time. I love that guy.
yeah.
Okay. Oh, man.
I can imagine you've got a list as long as your fucking arm. So
Yeah,
the
mate, of course.
difficulty is not thinking of something;
Mate,
it's choosing something.
I've been building it for a decade, but the most salient phrase, the most salient thing that comes to mind
Yeah.
is the phrase
Right.
brand building.
Okay.
Okay. And can I explain? Is that all
You
right?
can. Of course.
It's because of what it represents.
Right.
Okay. Which is a complete cop out for understanding the job that needs to be done or the commercial realities of the client you're working on.
Right.
So whenever I was in agency, like particularly towards the end of my time in agencies, and I'm being a little bit flippant here because at the moment I have no intention of going back,
Yeah.
to be perfectly honest. And I used to like get a bit fed up. So like when I was in the rare occasions that I was looking at creative work and I was feeling a little bit cantankerous, which you know me is regularly.
Yeah, regular.
I would just put my hand up and just say, "What job is this doing?" And obviously, I met with immediate blank stares that transitions to sort of visceral rage, and then someone would immediately just say, "Like, oh, it's brand building," and I'd just be like, "What does that mean?
Yeah.
What part of the brand? What does that mean?" And obviously it would all break down from there, and I'd be kicked out the room or ostracized or disliked because nobody considers what the job is that needs to be done for the brand. Brand building is for me, it's the code word for we want to make this cool fucking ad, irrespective of the job that needs to be done for the client.
Right.
And it used to just really bug me. It's such a cop out. Do you know what I mean? Like such a cop out.
If I said to me, because I get your phrase, I understand it as a phrase because I think you're right. It's a nebulous phrase, like, and it gets used as a catch. So the word engagement.
You could drive a bus through it, mate.
The word engagement enrages me. Because no one ever
drive
defines
engagement. Yeah, what does that fucking?
What does that mean? Yeah, give me an actual metric.
Be specific.
To me, it ties into what we were talking about earlier. Though it ties into the mental availability argument. If somebody said, "We're doing this. It's going to build this advert is going to build distinctive brand assets. We're going to be consistent with it over the next 10 years. It's going to create memory structures.
This is it. Sit in people's brains.
So that I can recall this. I can recall this brand in a buying situation. So, like the best phrase I heard recently: the brand that remembers is the brand that is remembered is a brand that is bought.
Correct. And salience, mate. That is salience. 100%. And
memory structures.
Again, I'm not against that, but I wish they would just say we're driving salience. So. As a specific example, I was working with a brand that has over 95% salience for Christmas. And I was looking at the concepts for some work, and I asked the question, what job is this doing for the brand? And they said brand building. And when I pushed, I said, you mean salience? And they said, yeah. I was like, that job needs to be maintained. It doesn't need to be fucking done. Like, what else have you got? Like, because I can give you 10 other jobs that need to be done for this brand.
It's a pretty fucking famous brand at that point. Yeah, fame is not the problem.
I was kicked out of the fucking room, mate, and told to shut up. But my perspective, that's why I hate it, is because it's A, say salience, if that's what you mean, and B, be specific, because when you say brand building, like it's like if I say to you, oh, my car needs fixed, and you're like, yeah, don't worry about it, and you just throw a spanner at it. Like, you need to be specific. What is the job that needs to be done? Because there are salience in what context, salience in what environment, with what things, with what moments.
Okay.
So yeah, I hate that phrase brand building because it's just a cop out.
All right. Well, it can go in along with engagement. The caveat being, you can use them if you truly define what you mean by them.
100%. I'm not against brand building.
But just saying it's a cop out answer. I know what you mean. It kind of becomes a catch-all cop out. I get what you mean. Well, Mark, it has been exactly as I expected, catching back up with you. It's been a lot of fun. Thank you very much. A lot of strident opinions, which is why we love having you on. Good luck with Critical Truth. I think it's a really interesting perspective and I think some much needed rigor into the world of marketing. And I hope it goes well for you and your team. Thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you, mate. I always love talking to you, and I wish we could do it more, but we're half a world apart.
We are indeed. All right. Well, thank you. As you can tell from that interview, Mark's a very shy, quiet man, reticent to give opinions, you might say. Seriously though, always a fun chat with Mark, and I hope you enjoyed it. Until the next one, take great care and be vigilant.